Hello, Tennessee history. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had a good day on Good Friday and a good Easter Sunday yesterday with family or friends as we celebrated the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Last week in Tennessee history, we talked about the Battle of Stones River and the battles in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the Southern Confederate soldiers and army lost both of those battles and in those areas. And after that, there wasn't very much fighting in Tennessee. There were like maybe small little fights or scuffles, but nothing that would have caused a threat to the Union Army. The rest of them, the battles took place in like Atlanta and North Alabama, and then later in Virginia. And so the end of the Civil War it ended in the spring of 1865, and the Union and North had won the Civil War. The South and Confederate Army and South had lost. Here's an interesting fact about the Civil War. Other than Virginia, the state that had more military action was Tennessee. I never knew that, or it was very interesting to me to find that out. That other than Virginia, military action and fighting took place in Tennessee. There may have been other battles, with more significance. There may have been, other things going on in other states, but other than Virginia, Tennessee had the most military action. That was very interesting to me. And one reason is because of the Mississippi River. If the North got a hold of that, they had a huge advantage in the Civil War. And so the South, they were trying to protect their side from the North trying to get to access to the Mississippi River. And so that was one of the major factors, because if you got control of the Mississippi River, you could go all the way down to Mississippi and Louisiana. And also the Tennessee and Cumberland River had an effect as well, as they would go to Mississippi and Alabama as well. And so just the rivers being in Tennessee had a huge effect and reason they were fighting in Tennessee. Well, after the Union Army, the North had won, the South and Confederacy were trying to rebuild. It's what we call Reconstruction. And for both of these lessons, you want to take notes on both of them so you can use these notes for your both two assignments this week. And so make sure you're taking notes from this video. So Reconstruction. Have you ever built something or seen someone build something, maybe out of Play-Doh or blocks or Legos or something? You build it up and it's real nice and everything. Well, say, a little brother or sister tears a piece off and it's still there, but part of it's gone. Well, you reconstruct it and you put the piece back on, or you put it a different way. Or say little brother or sister tears up that piece of that figure. Or say someone just destroys that figure. You have to reconstruct it. It may not look exactly the same, or it may look the same, but you have to do the work and take the time to do that. Well, in the South, they were going through something that was called Reconstruction. They had to rebuild because the battles took place in the South. And we're going to look at the Reconstruction of Tennessee. So Reconstruction is rebuilding, but it refers to the steps taken to restore southern states to the Union. And so the states in the South were rebuilding themselves, because that's where the battles and the war took place. But not only that, they were trying to take the steps to rejoin the Union. Remember, most of the southern states had left the Union. They seceded, and they made their own government. They made their own country called the Confederate States of America. So they were not, after the war, they were not a part of the U.S., the United States of America. They had to rejoin. They had to be reunited. And so Reconstruction was a process that they had to go through in order to do that. And so after the war ended, Tennessee looked completely different than it did before the war. Before the war, it was normal. You had, houses, you had plantations of cotton or corn, you had, some little stores and stuff. It was normal. I mean, it was a normal life. But then during the war, remember we said earlier, Tennessee faced, other than Virginia, faced more military action than anyone else. And so war is very tough, and there's huge effects that happen. Fields are neglected, they're messed up. Houses are torn down or very damaged. In fact, a lot of things were messed up and damaged during the battles. Homes, plantations as far as fields, farms, schools, courthouses, churches were all damaged during the Civil War. People used it to hide in or used it to attack from, attack the enemy from. And so whether it was, fighting or maybe some fires or whatever it is, all of these things were very damaged and did not look the same. It's kind of like if you've ever seen on TV, or maybe you've experienced this yourself, you've seen a tornado come by and it just wipes something out. Or say, another natural disaster, maybe a huge storm other than a tornado, and just destroys everything. Maybe you've seen on TV, like I said, other natural disasters that have just torn apart things, and it looks completely different. You see the before, and everything's just normal as it should be, and then after, it's all torn apart, it's all messed up, it's all damaged, nothing looks the way it did or used to. And that's what it was going on in Tennessee. And so Tennessee definitely had to go through Reconstruction, as well as all other states, but especially in Tennessee. Well, President Lincoln, he had a big part. He had a plan for Reconstruction, for bringing the states back to the Union. One of the things he did was it had to form its own government, and 10% of the population had to take a loyalty oath saying that they would, honor what the U.S., the United States were saying, because they had to follow the laws of that government. They had to abide by that because they were making new amendments and new laws, and so they had to follow those. And the United States wanted to make sure that they were going to do that before they joined, because that was, one of the reasons they had a war in the first place, is that they did not agree on, certain laws and ways of doing things. And so they had to do that. And so in 1865, January of that month, or that year, Congress passed the 13th Amendment, which eliminated all slavery. Slavery was no more in the United States. It ended. And then April 1865, a tragedy happened. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. He was killed by John Wilkes Booth, and he passed away. And so, as a result, Vice President Andrew Johnson of Tennessee became the new president, and we'll talk more about him next week. So, President Lincoln has died, and now Andrew Johnson has taken over, and he still wanted to follow President Lincoln's plan. So, reconstructing the Tennessee government. During the Civil War, they were a part of the Confederate States of America government. They did not have their own really government, and it was hard. They really couldn't have a government and fight, because things were looked differently while they were fighting. So they had the Confederate States of America government. Now they had to settle their own government again. In January 1865, Tennessee had delegates. They had people meeting to reconstruct the government, reform it, rebuild it. William G. Brownlow became the first governor of Tennessee after the Civil War. And he was not a nice man or a good leader. There were people in Tennessee that fought for the South. They fought for the Confederacy. They did not want to fight against, their Southern brothers and sisters. And so they wanted to defend them. They were in the South and they were part of the Confederate States of America. And so they fought for them. Well, after the Civil War, Governor Brownlow, he did not like that people had gone against the Union, the United States of America. He did not like that people were fighting for the Confederacy. And he had no mercy for these people. He did not appreciate or tolerate or like these people. And so he would do things that would, punish these people. He would do things, one of those things was he made it where people that had fought or supported the Confederacy couldn't vote. He made it where it almost kept everyone from voting, though, except for those that supported. Only those that supported Governor Brownlow could vote on different things. If you supported the Confederacy, you couldn't vote. And it was a terrible time for those who had fought in the South, or for the South, for the Confederacy, when they came back to Tennessee and found out how things were and how they, were not liked, they were not appreciated, they couldn't vote, a lot of different things that was tough for them. And so Brownlow was not a very good leader. He was not trying to reunite the people in the state. In fact, it caused more division, or it still kept the division in the state. So Governor Brownlow, he was the first governor after the Civil War in Tennessee, and this is how he did things. He was really like a kind of like a dictator or like a tyrant, in that he wanted to rule and wanted to do things whatever he wanted. And really, the people that were also in government supported him and everything, and so he really had control over them. The last thing we'll talk about today, and for this week, is Tennessee returns to the Union, to the United States of America. Remember, they are a part of the Confederate States of America, and now they're trying to rejoin the United States of America. In July 1866, Tennessee submitted and obeyed the 14th Amendment, and what this amendment did is it gave slaves the right to become citizens. They became citizens of the U.S. Before, they were not citizens of the United States. They were living in the United States, but they were not citizens. But now, the 14th Amendment made it where they could be citizens of the United States, and now they could vote and have other rights that citizens have. On July 23rd, the Congress recognized Tennessee's government, and Tennessee became a part of the United States once again. They were able to rejoin and become a part of the U.S. In fact, this is very interesting. Before as the Civil War was starting, when states were starting to secede, Tennessee was the last state to secede. Well, now that people were trying to rejoin the U.S., now that the war was over, Tennessee was the first state to rejoin. So they were the last state to secede from the Union, but then they were the first state to rejoin. And so it's awesome to see how Tennessee did all they could to not join the South or the Confederacy, and then they did join. But then afterwards, they were the first one. They were doing everything they could to rejoin the U.S., and so they did that. And so we see that construction is beginning in the U.S. and construction is beginning in Tennessee, Reconstruction. And so that's what our lessons are for today and for this week. And what your assignments are going to be are, one assignment is I want you to write 5 sentences, 1 paragraph, 5 sentences about imagine what it would be like if you were a Tennessean during the Civil War. I want you to write, out of the 5 sentences, maybe 2 or 3 of them could be, this is what the fighting was like. Things were being torn up. It was scary, with all the fighting going on. So write, stuff like that. And then the other part of the paragraph could be, how is life different? Remember, churches had been destroyed. Schools have been destroyed. Buildings have been destroyed. They were all damaged. Plantations. Life was different. And then they got this governor who only supported those that were on the side of the Union. And so imagine how life was different for them. And so I want you to write 5 sentences telling about what life was like during the Civil War in Tennessee and also shortly after. So 5 sentences. How you want to divide that up in the paragraph, that's up to you, but it needs to be 5 sentences. And then the second part, or the second assignment is, based on these notes that we have just gone over, I'm going to have a worksheet for you, a handout, that there are going to be sentences and there's going to be something missing from the sentence. There's going to be like a word or a phrase, and there will be a word bank of what is missing up there as far as things you can choose from, but you are trying to find the right phrase or right word that is missing from the sentence. And everything, sorry about that, everything that was covered in the notes will be able to help you on that assignment. And so if you just need help, you can look to the notes for that. But those are the 2 assignments for this week. Make sure you turn them in on Friday by 5 o'clock. And hope you enjoy learning about Reconstruction in Tennessee. And I hope you have a good week.